Governments are no longer denying it. The military are no longer denying it. And even mainstream media no longer denies it. They're here and have been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing the truth with you. Welcome to MUFON's What's Up with hosts Katie Grabowski, Christopher DiPerno, and Katie Cook, exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up? I don't know about all of you, but this week sure did fly by. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're already at another Thursday night. Welcome to MUFON What's Up, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity and curiosity starts with MUFON. I'm so glad you're all here with us tonight. We've got a great guest for you, David Toon. Before we do that, we got news, person of interest, book recommendations, and all sorts of great discussion brought to you by kgradb.com. As always, we endorse MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. We've been on the front lines from the very beginning, from 1969, asking that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? I hope everybody is having a great evening tonight. So, Katie, let me introduce my co-hosts. We have Katie Cook. Welcome, Katie.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. And Christopher DiPerno out of New York. Hi, Chris.
Hello, everybody. Man, what a great show with David Toon tonight. I've talked to him several times before, and he's such a wealth of information. I'm telling you, this guy is right on top of everything in the ufology field.
Yes, it's not going to be another great show. I'm so excited too. Is it like very cold back east, Chris, in New York? I mean, we have a beautiful day.
No, it's actually kind of mild. It's only -7. So for the Buffalo area, that's okay. So, I mean, we don't go outside. My dog Stewie went outside and he came back a popsicle, but you know, that's just the way Buffalo is. I don't know why I moved up here, but here I am.
There you are.
Well, we need you up there keeping an eye on the skies.
Well, it's full of snow. You can't see anything, Cookie. It's full of snow. And I'm not going outside. I don't care if the Martians invade. I'm not going outside. So I don't care.
Oh, sorry.
-7.
Oh,
That's bad. That's bad.
What's it like in Tennessee there, Katie?
It's in the 30s. We had a lot of snow a few days ago. It's all melted now, but it's cold. I mean, Chris is like, shut up. It's not. You're like in freaking Phoenix compared to me. So
I know, right.
Oh,
all
gosh.
right. So, Katie, you always kick us off with something great. What do you have for us this week?
Yes, I got a fun meme. This one's actually a birthday card that I received from my husband and daughter. Amanda, can we put that up? Look how cute that is. For those of you just listening. So, this guy's on a table. There's a couple aliens and says, I've examined this kind before. Whatever you do, don't pull his finger. And then, as if that's not funny enough, the inside of the card, just one quick pull. You fool, open a window. Because fart jokes are always appropriate. I thought that was pretty cute. And we have a paranormal pop again this week. This one I thought was actually really appropriate. Let's see. Can you see that guy here? I don't want to. Now, if I go too close, you kind of lose the detail. But I thought it was very appropriate because it kind of looks like he's got the sun behind him. You guys will know what we mean in a minute. And then the moon and looks like Saturn. I just thought this little guy was so cute. Little cosmic pop. So as always, you can order these at paranormalpops.com. They're made right here in America and they're so yummy. This guy's vanilla flavored and I will be eating him soon. And then also check out one of my favorite Middle Tennessee artists, Renfro Originals. Last week we showed you an alien abduction piece, but this week we have her Sasquatch feet. Look how cool that is. I love that guy. I think we have another one too. Yeah. Oh, I just love these.
So pretty big.
I know they are pretty big. Yeah, exactly. I don't have one here, but yeah, they're probably about that size. So yeah, this is beautiful stained glass. It's made right here by hand in Middle Tennessee, and you can order them at renfrooriginals.com. You can also follow them online, all the socials at Renfro Originals. So love those. All right, Chris, what is happening in the world of UFO news?
Well, we got some great news. Amanda? All right. So our first story is about a Stanford professor says he's been testing materials recovered from UFO crashes, and he's not kidding. Stanford professor Gary Nolan says he has analyzed UFO materials and they're not playing by the rules. I don't know what that means. Professor Nolan has revealed that he has studied materials from UFOs, several of which not to be playing by the rules. Professor Nolan was approached by various American government agencies and aeronautic corporations that had weird objects known professionally as UAPs, UFOs. It's all the same thing. It's a crash saucer. But to everyone else, as UFOs, they needed to be looked at. Some objects he revealed are especially unexplainable, with 2 of the 12 UFO fragments he analyzed not playing by the rules. I keep saying that because he keeps saying it. Some of the objects are just lumps of metal. Mostly there's nothing unusual about them, except that everywhere you look in the metal, the composition is different, which is odd. The common thing about all the materials that he's looked so far, that none of them are uniform. They're all hodgepodge mixtures. Each individual case will be composed of a similar set of elements, but they will be non-uniform. One of the specimens he analyzed was an unusual piece of magnesium, said to be found at an air crash site in Brazil in 1957. That was a pretty famous UFO crash. When he analyzed the 2 separate samples from the same event, they were wildly different. But Professor Nolan isn't the only one working on this. Amanda, will you show that video, please?
For years, the Pentagon secretly studied the seemingly impossible abilities of unknown craft captured in these military videos. Scientists now want to know if the materials used in these mystery aircraft allow them to do what they do. For years, one of the secret studies was carried out by Bass, a Las Vegas operation hidden within Bigelow Aerospace. Documents first reported by the I-Team show that Bass landed a contract with the DIA, and one of the objectives was to study so-called metamaterials, as well as futuristic technologies.
It was a multi-layered bismuth and magnesium sample. Bismuth layers less than a human hair. Magnesium samples about 10 times the size of a human hair. Supposedly picked up in the crash retrieval of an advanced aerospace vehicle. Looks like it's been in a crash.
In Las Vegas back in June, physicist Hal Puthoff came pretty close to saying that this weird wedge of metamaterial came from a crashed saucer, but he can't know for sure. Puthoff and his colleague Dr. Eric Davis are on the cutting edge of attempts to identify an assortment of bits and pieces that are seemingly beyond anything we can create. This one sample is engineered in layers thinner than microns through a process unknown on Earth and for a purpose we can only guess.
Nowhere could we find any evidence that anybody ever made one of these. When we talked to people who, in the materials field, who should know, they said, we don't know why anybody would want to make anything like this.
Astrophysicist Dr. Jacques Vallée has been analyzing mystery metals since the 80s, often using the technical expertise of Stanford University and Silicon Valley to unravel unknown samples acquired from all over the world. Vallée pointedly steers clear of any military funding, and he shared his findings at public conferences.
I gotta tell you, if that isn't close to disclosure, I don't know. Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis are some of the 2 top physicists in the world. Cookie, what do you think?
Well, it is really exciting research for sure. I mean, you know, me personally, I'm always more drawn to what experiencers are going through, you know, the feelings, how it changes the world. But, you know, for so many people, nuts and bolts, that's what it comes down to. They need this kind of proof to even be able to believe in all of this. So anything that gets us closer to that, I think is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
Katie, have you heard of this type of experiment?
I haven't seen that photo. It's pretty compelling, the layers in that. And I think it's probably wise that they don't go for government funding or military funding for that. But I wonder, like, I was watching Admissible. I finally bought that this weekend, and I watched it with Jimmy Church and Linda Moulton Howe, and all that was really excellent. And something that kind of alerted me a little bit was like, I wonder, you know, how many big corporations like General Electric per se, let's say they were privy to some of this back engineered metamaterial and really profited from it where it was withheld from other big corporations. That creates a huge problem. And I think it's part of the puzzle one of the small pieces why we still don't have big disclosure with the big D. These people that were privy to some of this back engineered metal. So I find it all very fascinating. And I'm always like interested in, was there quasi crystals in there, or, natural made aluminum and all that stuff. So I love that. I'm kind of geeky science a little bit, although I'm not very smart when it comes to that, but just enough just to intrigue me. So yeah, I think it's really interesting.
Well, if you think that story was interesting, the next one's going to blow your mind.
Oh, good.
Extensive research on brains of people who've had UFO encounters has some interesting insight. Okay? A professor has been testing the brains of people who say they've experienced a UFO encounter. Folks, I'm not joking. Professor Gary Nolan, once again, has done actual analysis and research of human encounters with UFOs. This includes military pilots claiming to have UFO encounters, some of whom have suffered serious health issues as a result. Professor Nolan reveals that he was contacted by the CIA to analyze about 100 patients, mostly defense or government personnel or people working in the aerospace industry who have had UFO encounters. A reasonable subset of them have claimed to have seen UFOs, and some claim to be close to these things that got them sick. Professor Nolan studied MRIs of the brain of some of these people. The MRIs revealed damage in the middle of the basal ganglia. Folks, I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good. The area responsible for motor control and core brain functions, including intuition. Nolan said the damage should have killed these people, but they were alive. These are all so-called high-functioning people. They're pilots who are making split-second decisions, intelligence officers in the field, etc., etc. Nolan compared these injuries to those who have suffered from Havana syndrome. One of the patients had their encounter on the Skinwalker Ranch, and their brain damage was so extensive. Ultimately, his team learned the people who originally thought they were damaged and overconnection of neurons between the head of the caveat and the put of them. And sorry, folks, if I'm butchering these words, but I'm not a neuroscientist like this guy is. Let's hope we hear more from Dr. Gary Nolan, a real scientist studying UFOs and claiming to have UFO encounters. Let's watch this short video. Amanda?
Alien means alien. They're either from another planet in this galaxy or elsewhere, or they're from another level of reality that we don't understand, or they've been here all along and they just show up to look at us because they're basically maybe looking at their past. From my point of view, when I got involved, the CIA came to my office. I mean, at first I thought it was a joke. I really did. I was looking across the way here at some of the other offices to see if there was a camera. And so they said, we'd asked around, and everybody said that you've built the best tool called SciToF. I was introduced to others who were, I think you people call them the Invisible College. Mm-hmm. It was people like Jacques, people like Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, and Robert Bigelow, and Colm Kelleher. And then they showed me MRIs of some of these people, and most of those people had interactions with UFOs. And these were Department of Defense and intelligence people, so supposedly and reasonably credible individuals. So in looking at the MRIs of some of these people, we noticed a area of the brain that seemed to be disturbed, let's say, or different in many of these individuals. So it's an area that I've talked about before between the head of the caudate and the putamen that had increased neural density. And it was larger in all these individuals. And so you just ask the question, okay, what's unique about these individuals? Well, they're all highly functioning, and you have to make snap decisions. Mayday, mayday! And so what is that? That's intuition. One way to explain it would be intuition, or just highly intelligent. And then surprisingly, when we looked in the family members, we found that the family members had it, which was fascinating. So that means that structure had a genetic component, whatever it was.
Here's a question. Do you have a genetic and phenotypic predisposition to seeing the UFOs? Or post-contact, do you now have a more neuronally dense caudate nucleus and putamen?
No, I don't think that. I don't think it's changed. They're just able to, as you say, see it. They're able to recognize it for what it might be, and not dismiss it. From
maybe.
their perspective, let's say a million years ahead of them, they know that we're maybe a few hundred years from, spreading in our local galactic arm, even if only by conventional craft. Do they want a bunch of angry monkeys running around with bombs? They probably want to keep tabs on us.
I like angry monkeys. No.
I could tell you that story blew my mind because first of all, Dr. Gary Nolan is a well-established Stanford professor and doctor. He's brilliant. He holds, I think, 42 patents. He's probably a multimillionaire, and he's highly regarded at Stanford University. That's number one. Number two, for him to come out with a story like this, and he's not 6 feet underground if the government wanted to keep this quiet, why is he coming out with this now? That he's actually examining MRIs given to him by the U.S. government to see the side effects of people about this. Cookie, your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. I'll go through them as quick as I can. I thought it was interesting that he touched on family members can also have this going on in the brain. That immediately makes me think about abduction or contact being, generational. He also touched briefly at the beginning on aliens potentially looking at their past when they're looking at us. We're going to have Michael Masters on as a guest, and we're going to be talking a lot about that because I find that fascinating. Obviously, it's so scary to think that you could have any kind of damage, but we hear this over and over again when people have close contact, if it's radiation or whatever. I always try to think positively, and there's a part of me that wonders if, what we call damage could just be stimulating another part of the brain. You know how one part of the brain can get damaged. We see this a lot in brain injuries. It's never something you want, but just trying to think positively, could it cause growth and stimulation in another area? I wonder if there's something being unlocked in these people that, we're just looking at it and calling it damage, but maybe there's more to it. I don't know. I don't want to oversimplify that. And then, he referred to them, the aliens, probably being millions of years ahead of us. I think we need to be careful not to do that. I think that's kind of something we all tend to do. Well, they're so far advanced, I don't think you can put a number on that because I look at our, how we've grown exponentially with our technology just in the last 100 years. I mean, the jumps we've had, I just think it's very hard to predict where society or culture is going, as far as technology. So I don't know. Thoughts? That's just a few things that really stood out to me in that.
Right.
Katie, what do you think?
No, I'm right along with Katie on this too. I mean, that intuitive piece, the fact of the matter is that part of the brain is, it gets bigger. So I'm assuming they're more intuitive. They're quick to react. I find that very, very interesting. And you brought up a really good point. Like, when you lose a sense, let's say you're blind, your hearing gets really sharp. So like you said, are they fine tuning something and making certain individuals more intuitive and open to contact? I don't know. I think that's really compelling. I also, on the ranch, one of the things that happened to me when I came back from the Colorado Skinwalker Ranch, I was paralyzed and I couldn't speak and I had neurological. And from that night on, suffered severe migraine headaches, which is neurological in the brain. And somebody actually came up to me after a conference and said, did you ever connect that to? And I was like, well, not really, but it would make sense if there was, and you hear that sometimes with contactees that they'll get those. So, yeah. I'm so glad somebody's finally looking at the brain and really studying this. That's so exciting to me. Holy cow.
Well, he published it. So, I mean, it's out there for people to see. It's not anything that he was told to keep secret. Right. I don't have to worry because my wife says that I don't react to anything. So I don't think the UFOs or any aliens are going to want me. And that's the two stories there.
Wow. Good ones.
Wow. Very good. What about, did you get a person of interest this week?
I did. Let's just keep it rolling. Amanda. So our person of interest this week is Sergeant Clifford Stone, alien investigator. Sergeant Clifford Stone was born in Portsmouth, Ohio, a specialist sergeant in the U.S. Army. Sergeant Stone was a UFO researcher and a whistleblower. Sergeant Stone spent 22 years serving in the U.S. Army, where he says he was covertly assigned to elite UFO crash retrieval teams known as Project Moondust and Blue Fly. Sergeant Stone was unique among those experiencing and investigating UFO and ET phenomena, assigned to an extremely elite and secret group that was rapidly dispatched to crash sites in order to recover UFOs, the deceased bodies, and the artifacts. Initially, Sergeant Stone was assigned to an NBC team, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Retrieval at Fort McClellan in Alabama, and did some regular assignments until he was called for retrieval duties. Besides his Army service record, was manipulated and excluded all his UFO recovery activities, showing him as a typist. Since his retirement from the Army, he has devoted his time to search government archives. Sergeant Stone claims to have knowledge of that intelligent life is visiting this planet in crafts capable of traveling distances of many light years very quickly and effectively. Further, he stresses that our recovery of these ET crafts and artifacts have allowed our government to make staggering scientific gains of great potential benefits to the world. He maintains, as many others do, that this information is held in deep secret programs beyond constitutional control. Despite the end of the Cold War, these black projects have continued to keep these information discoveries to themselves for motives only known to them. Sergeant Stone revealed in an interview that during the 1960s, the U.S. Army has been in contact with over 57 different ET races that have been visiting Earth for a very long time. Wow, 57. He said that many species look like humans, but their eyes were slightly larger and had black irises. According to him, extraterrestrial species contacted only through telepathy and could even read minds. Stone also claimed that there are many alien groups that visit our solar system and Earth. But when humans learned how to detect their crafts, they limited their visits but did not stop. Sergeant Stone became a very vocal about his experience. Please watch this short video. Amanda?
We very quickly were able to ascertain within 3 to 4 years after the end of the war that our visitors were anywhere from 1 to 2 billion years ahead of us. In the 1950s, the United States Air Force had an elite unit to investigate UFOs outside of Blue Book, even though Blue Book thought that that unit was working with them, they were not. This unit was initially organized as the 4602nd Air Intelligence Service Squadron. Among its peacetime missions was Operation Blue Fly. Operation Blue Fly was to recover objects of unknown origin that fell to Earth. It's very important that you remember objects that fell to Earth because we didn't have any spacecraft up there at this time. As a result of this, they had monitors right there at Wright-Patterson that when UFO reports came in, they were looked at very closely to see if there was any possible means of, or any possible necessity of sending out teams to recover any of this fallen debris. The Air Force states they never used them. I'm telling you they did. But the intent of Operation Blue Fly, peacetime project, was to go out and recover objects of unknown origin that impacted with the Earth. Later it would be expanded in 1957 to cover all objects of unknown or all objects of unknown origin, meaning spacecraft too. It would be expanded to a much larger program encompassing other programs out there, and it would become part of what they would call in the 1957 October time frame Project Moondust. Project Moondust is the overall field exploitation to recover only 2 items. That is, objects of non-U.S. origin that survives re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere and impacts with the Earth. Naturally, we would be interested in those items from a technical, scientific intelligence basis to determine or try to ascertain the technical capabilities of any potential enemy or known enemy of the U.S. at that time that was launching space vehicles into space. The other or the other area of interest was objects of unknown origin. Now we find that there were quite a few objects of unknown origin that did not correlate with any known space launches or impact times of any known space debris falling back to Earth. We also find out that there was never a report filed by our government that we had recovered these objects and then notified the country. We would immediately ascertain the point of origin that we had recovered them, which would be required by international law. And we never ever went ahead and had a political protest filed against us. In short, under moon dust, under blue fly, we have recovered alien debris, not of this Earth. I am prepared to state that I have been at locations where craft of unknown origin that did not originate on the face of this planet was there. I am prepared to state that while I was there, we saw living, dead bodies of entities that were not born on this planet. I am prepared to state that we had what they referred to as interfacing with those entities. I am prepared to state that the situation is they have a school to try to indoctrinate people. I never went to that school. I always refused. I am prepared to state that when I got out of the service in 1990, that they held me for 2 months, that I might better reconsider to stay in and not get out. I am prepared to state that I had orders that stated that I was supposed to get out December 1st, I think it was, December 1st of 1989, that they revoked those orders, once again in violation of law, to hold me for 2 months pending approval of my retirement, which had already been approved. The purpose of that was to try to convince me to stay in. We have contact with aliens not originating from some foreign country, but from some other solar system. And I have been a party to that.
Wow. You know, Sergeant Stone died in February of 2021. With him died such amazing information that would have helped this UFO community of ours. Sergeant Clifford Stone, a brave government whistleblower. I'll let the people decide. Cookie?
Wow, at the end there, his conviction reminded me of Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Like, we are not alone. You've got to get that out there, that information. It's very brave of him. I mean, is he telling the truth? Who knows? He's certainly saying what a lot of other people have said. Yeah, very big loss that he's no longer part of the community. One thing that caught my attention, so Project Moondust and Blue Fly, I want to say it was Paul Hynek that was telling me, J. Allen Hynek's son, Paul, I think he's the one who told me that someone told him if it has 2 words, it's not actually classified. Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's true. I could have that backwards because there was Project Grudge and what was the other one? Sign. So those were singular words. I may have that backwards, but I'm going to go back and try to figure that out. And Chris, you were talking before the video about the telepathic communication with these beings. I always find that fascinating. It's like, go with me here for a minute. Maybe if you're talking telepathically with somebody, there just is no language barrier. I mean, yes, you're going to hear them in whatever language you speak, but could there just be something about the nature of telepathy that you think they're talking to you in your own language, but the truth is you're just understanding them and they're understanding you, and that maybe there's no language barrier? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, but I think it gels all together, Cookie, because remember one thing, one of the most famous abductees, Travis Walton, could not communicate with them. He's actually told me, he says, Chris, I thought they were trying to communicate. They looked like they were trying to say something, telepathically, not through their mouth, but there was nothing coming through. And they actually ran out of the room because he was getting violent. But there are people who've been abducted that for whatever reason cannot communicate. Then there's people who've been abducted that actually get telepathic messages. So with the last story we did, is there something in somebody's brain that allows this telepathic message to come through as opposed to others? So I think all this stuff is starting to gel together. And I think hopefully we'll get more of that gelling, in 2022.
Gosh, I hope so. Maybe that's why they brought Travis back. They're like, we can't talk to you now. I love you, Travis. I'm totally kidding. The other thing that stood out, the government, if they are getting this technology from these beings and they're not willing to share it with us, maybe they're sharing it with us in some ways that we don't totally understand. But, maybe that's something people that have regular contact and they're okay with that and they're willing to continue having regular contact, maybe they need to ask for as much technology, science, whatever they can gain, from this contact, and let's put it in the hands of the people more. I think the more people come out and talk about what they're being exposed to, what they're learning from these beings, then the government can't shut everybody down. I mean, if enough people are like, well, this is what they're telling me, we just have to keep that going and, power of the people.
Well, I will tell you this, and this is something that amazes me because Clifford Stone put it out there that they look like us. Who's to say if there's 57 species, who's to say that it's just gray aliens? When we think of an alien, we always think of a gray alien. Well, who's to say they aren't a species out there that looks exactly like us and can come down here, walk around, grab an ice cream cone and mingle with us and wouldn't know the difference. I mean, Katie, what do you think?
Again, I'm going to bring up that film I just watched just because it's fresh in my memory. But it's hard for me when you start putting numbers on how many races that have visited our planet. I mean, it's hard to know that. So a specific number, 57, where did that come from? Where did he pull that from? Listening to Linda Moulton Howe again, she was talking about the three main races on Earth, the reptilians, the Nordics, or the tall blondes, and the grays. And she had mentioned that the grays kind of work both sides of the fence. They'll work with the reptilians and they'll work with the Nordics, and they're all three have been visiting our planet for thousands upon thousands of years. They're doing experiments here. They're trying to battle for it. It's like we're kind of in their way, which kind of goes again with what was reported at the ranch. So I find that interesting. But what she said that's interesting to me, and if I might be getting this all wrong. I actually had to rewind, re-listen. But I think what she was saying is that they can actually clone themselves. So you can have a reptilian that is appearing to be like a Nordic and a Nordic that appears to be a reptilian, and then they can actually go into humans. So they don't know who they're dealing with. And if I caught it right, I believe she said that there's some sort of technology, I don't know who has it, if the government has it or whatever, that can actually tell which race that they're dealing with, who is inside the shell, so to speak. Isn't that bizarre? So everything's all mixed together. So they're all disguising. And so
it works with screen memory.
Yeah, or screen memory. So it's these little bits again coming out. And then last night we watched on Showtime, there's a great JFK, the new information that came out. They're basically in that documentary saying that CIA was involved. So did I distrust the government before? Yes, but they've been lying to us through Roswell since 1947, through the JFK assassination, it's just wow. I mean, I have no trust at all.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Cookie.
I was going to say, if they do have that technology where they can tell who somebody really is, they should definitely share that with humans on dating sites. I think that would come in really handy. It would help a lot of people. So don't be holding back, government. That ain't cool. The aliens are trying to help us out there in the dating world, and you're blocking them. Not cool.
Yeah, but what happens if they turn back into a reptilian? I mean, if I'm not single, of course, because sometimes I think my wife is a reptilian. Hope she didn't hear that. But anyways, can you imagine dating somebody and they get excited and they all of a sudden you see this lizard in front of you? Holy crap. That's certainly going to blow that dinner first date.
Yeah, it's not going to go well. And then they'll go, it's just a screen memory. I'm not really a lizard.
I don't care screen memory or not. I'm out of there. Here's $20 for the check. I'm out of here. See you later.
I think
$20. Where are you dating? Sorry.
I'm a cheap bastard.
I think it's funny we always assume the reptilians are the bad guys. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're actually very sweet lizards. I don't know.
Well, if they try to take me to Golden Corral for a date, they're the bad guy. That's all I'm saying. I need a more expensive date than that. I'm kidding. I'm happily married. Okay, moving on. Katie G, have you got a case of the week for us?
I do. And kind of going off the theme, last week we had Owl, right? Mike Cleland. So I thought, well, what about sun? Well, nobody can take pictures of the sun or really look at the sun. So I thought, well, how about the moon? So I typed in moon, found it's kind of, again, a little bit older of a case, but I cruised all our moon sightings and I found a cool moon case. So this is MUFON case number 85721. This is interesting. It started out as a category 1 case, which is kind of, a light in the sky, but they moved it up to a category 2 case. So that's pretty cool. This occurred August 6, 2017. It happened at 8:14 p.m. It lasted for 3 minutes. The sighting location was in California, Stockton, California. The location of the witness, he was outside. It was a nice day, 79 degrees, wind speed at 11 miles an hour, clear night. He was outside photographing the moon. Interesting note that Stockton Municipal Airport was about 5 miles south of this location. So here's what the witness says. It was a credible witness, a 55-year-old school teacher. And Amanda, as I'm reading the statement, you can bring up the picture. So he said, I was taking photos of the full moon when I noticed a black object flying toward the moon and into my shot. It made no sound and had no light. So it's important to note that he saw this object with his eyes, not just after when he developed the film. It flew from left to right, then down, then hovered, then back to the left. When I got home and dumped photos to the computer, I noticed that there were actually 3 objects in the photos and sometimes 2. They were flying saucer shaped. I kept shooting, but the objects were no longer visible. They just vanished. So the investigator summary and conclusion, I believe what the witness saw and captured in his photos was an unknown UAV. Because of the way it flew through the sky, it made no noise and then vanished. And in that one right there, in that photo, way to the left, it's very small. You can see the second one in that photo, and it's way to the left there. So I just thought that, it's pretty shots of the moon. Again, we have the telephone lines and the roof for, you can see how it looked in the sky. But yeah, so that's my case of the week. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a cool one. I'm not sure what to think of that, but it looks pretty real to me. I don't know. What do you think, Chris? I love this one.
I would love to see video on that. Can you imagine if he had caught some video? I'd love to see the speed, kind of get an idea of everything to it.
Yeah, it was captured on a Canon ESO, he said. So I think he had an actual camera because I thought that would be great too.
Has that photo been analyzed by any chance?
He didn't have too much on there. Maybe we should send it off to one of our photo analysts, have him take a look. Yeah,
I would absolutely send that to a photo analyst and have that verified, because that's a great sighting if it's correct. Too bad he didn't get video. That would have been awesome.
That would have been really great. Yeah, it's so classic saucer shaped.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it too. So case of the week this week, very cool.
Very good.
And yeah. So Chris, did you catch up with Bob Spearing this week for international?
I did,
news?
and once again, he's got some international news. Amanda.
Hi, everybody. This is Bob Spearing. I'm MUFON's Director of Investigations International, and I'd like to thank Chris each week for letting me come on and show a very interesting case, most of the time with a video or at least a photograph. And this week I have something that we're still working on because we're not quite sure what it might be. There are some possible logical explanations, but the fellow who did this video was a very sincere witness. He was investigated by one of our longest running field investigators, whose badge number is 6,000, 25,000 before me, and he did a really good job on it. I'd like Chris to roll the video, and then we'll discuss what the fellow may or may not have been seeing. Chris, roll the video.
Arkadaşlar, UFO mu bu?
Okay, that's actually just a short clip. The fellow actually submitted 7 videos. You can see them in their entirety on YouTube, because he also posted them on YouTube. It occurred in Turkey on April 24th of this year. The objects seem to be wobbling, which suggests that the most likely probability is some sort of balloons. They did stay in sync as they were flying. He filmed them for a long time. It happened during rush hour AM in a very crowded part of a city in Turkey. and it was taken from a balcony. So first question is, who would be flying balloons at 8 o'clock in the morning? Second, and most importantly, as we've gone through the CMS within the past 2 months, we found 2 other videos that are eerily similar, where there is a black object that seems almost pancaked, almost like a blood corpuscle, and it's waffling through the air. Again, the most likely scenario is a balloon, but because we have several other similar videos from Australia and somewhere else in the world, we're going to investigate this further. So right now, the jury's out on this. I tend to think it will be an IFO, but in the meantime, we're going to keep looking and investigating it further because of the other 2 sightings that are incredibly similar. Thank you, Chris. This is Bob Spearing, signing off. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep. You know, he's incredible because he's so analytical. I mean, he takes this and he breaks it down so well that, I mean, he could take a look at a case and does an amazing job on every MUFON case that he gets. Every time I talk to him, I'm so impressed.
Yeah, I'm impressed that they actually take the time to go in and look for other videos that matches that and is like holding off, like, wait a minute, let's not just jump right into that. It's a malar balloon. Let's hold off. So that's kudos to them for doing that. For sure.
And sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, Cookie, you've been feeling crafty lately. I've been wanting to ask you that.
Why, I have. That's interesting that you would ask. Yeah, I've got a fun one for you this week. Amanda, can you roll that? You know, I had always wanted to learn how to throw pottery, so I decided to take a class last year. Now, of course, as you can imagine, they wanted us to learn how to make mugs or bowls or perhaps a nice flower vase. Well, I tried, but I just couldn't help myself. Yep, I had to turn mine into a UFO. I'll admit I got some funny stares from other people, and my teacher may have been a little disappointed in me at first, but honestly, it turned out pretty great, and by the end, I think I had everybody on board. Excuse the pun. And then, of course, I had to make a little baby UFO to go with the mothership. What do you guys think? That's your Crafty Cookie Pottery Edition.
I think Katie can go into business. That's my favorite one yet.
Really?
Yeah, I want one of those baby incense burners. I would buy one. You could take them to the conferences and stuff. Like,
I know, right? Well, let me tell you, unfortunately, I'd have to charge like $500. Throwing pottery is so difficult. Have you ever done it?
No.
I have right? Actually, when I went to Cortland State, I had to take an arts class. And the only thing that open was pottery, and it's the only course I failed. My professor came to me and says, "Forget about doing this. I'll teach you how to bet on the horses, because you stink at this." I tried making an ashtray, and I couldn't even make an ashtray.
Well, it's really hard. It's really physical. I mean, if I did it all the time, my arms would look amazing because it's so physical. But, you know, I just always wanted to learn how to do it. And of course, in my head, I just dreamt of making this giant UFO, you know, like this huge piece for my coffee table. And I got in there and I realized how freaking hard it is to even make like an ashtray. So I'm actually really proud of myself for even getting those made. But, you know, the teachers, you know, in any kind of art class, they kind of have to have the one thing they teach you to do so they know they've done their job. And they just kept saying, you've got to be able to do a cylinder, or we can't graduate you from the class. And I was just like, finally, I was like, okay. So I did the cylinder, and then they weren't looking, and I was like, no, it's a beam for a UFO. But I mean, you know, they kept walking by and they're like, what kind of mug is that? What are you doing? But I was really proud of it in the end. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's time consuming. I have a whole new appreciation for pottery. I'll just say that much.
Yeah, I learned how to bet on the horses during that class. So because I stunk at pottery.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good at betting on the horses either. So,
oh dear.
I mean, thank God I got a non-complete on that one.
Oh no. Speaking of selling things at conferences, because I don't know, I think you could go into business personally. I love that. But speaking of conferences, do you have a conference alert for us?
We do. Amanda, you want to roll that? Here's your conference alert. Coming up March 19th to 27th in Las Vegas is the UFO Mega Conference, a conference for minds fascinated by the unknown mysteries of our vast universe and committed to the Great Awakening. Check out more details at ufomegacon.com. Be sure to check out the 34th Annual Ozark UFO Conference in gorgeous Eureka Springs, Arkansas, April 8th to 10th, 2022. They always have great speakers and vendors, and Eureka Springs is an amazing place. And it's not too soon to make your plans for the MUFON 2022 Symposium, taking place in Denver, Colorado, July 8th to 10th. Mark your calendars and plan to join your fellow ufologists for great lectures, learning, and networking. See you there. That's jam.
Yep, me and Katie are getting down to that. Speaking of the international or the MUFON Symposium in Denver, we had some great guests of honor visit Colorado this weekend. So I think I have a picture there of our dinner. We had the executive director of MUFON, David McDonald, and his awesome, incredible wife Sharon. I'm like, you are the coolest chick, because they're both, I didn't know David and Sharon, they're both master divers. She's a pilot. She's just awesome. There they are. We had breakfast the next morning, and Marquetta was in town also. So I think there's a shot of Marquetta and I, but they were out looking at the venue for the symposium. There's Marquetta and I at breakfast. And again, it's at the Sheraton. And so when I went downtown to pick them up, I didn't realize literally the hotel. Oh, there's the crew. We had Don Schmidt in as our guest speaker. We have Doug Wilson there. That was very nice. What other pictures? I don't remember what other pictures I brought in. Me and David there. But what I learned is that there's Don Schmidt, Roswell, and that was a meeting I've been wanting to meet Don Schmidt like forever because of my Denver Roswell body connection. And I was always very intimidated and scared to meet him, but he was the nicest guy and was very interested, and it was great. It was just a great weekend. But back to the Denver Symposium, during COVID, I was unaware that they just remodeled the Sheraton down there. And literally they have the fire pits in the front. It's a beautiful venue, lots of light, lots of windows, new rooms, and it's right on the 16th Street Mall, which when I picked David and Cher, they were like, oh, we thought it was an indoor mall, so we're trying to look for the mall, but it's a big outdoor mall that you walk, so there's tons of restaurants, and I think it's going to just be a kick butt symposium. So I'm hoping to see a lot of you there. A lot of great speakers, and the venue is going to be just amazing. She said,
do you know any of the speakers?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that. I know that.
Okay, I don't know if it's a secret, but let's try it.
We are announcing them little by little, and the big rollout will come out. So I don't want to say anybody that hasn't absolutely. I know Don Schmidt will be one of them, but I don't want to say something and then we don't have them 100% on. I do know though that our excursion will be at the United States Air Force Academy. There's going to be a film shown and a private tour. And it's a beautiful location if you haven't been to the Air Force Academy. So that'll be a great day on Friday. So, the bus right out there. So I'm so looking forward to the symposium and the venue.
Yeah, I hope a ton of people come out. I mean, I say this all the time, but I mean, the speakers are wonderful, but I also feel like it's just who you meet, or who you get to see again. It's all about making those connections. It's so nice to be, under the same roof with a bunch of people that, just for that weekend, you don't have to go, okay, I know this sounds really weird, but because you're with a bunch of other weirdos that are like into the same thing, and you meet other experiencers. And I just get such a supercharge from being at those events and being around like-minded people. And then of course, the lectures, I always learn something new, and it's okay too, if all the speakers don't even agree on this phenomenon and what's going on. I love to hear like all those different points of view. And
me too.
I just, I love that environment. And I think it's really cool that it's going to be out there this time, in Denver. That's just going to be a really great environment. Are you going to get out there, Chris? I think we're all going to try to go,
if
right?
I don't get beat up on an airplane, because everybody's going crazy on airplanes, I definitely will be out there. It's just a matter of getting out there, getting a flight with all the flights and everything being canceled and stuff. But I think all that's going to be past us
Hopefully
by
by
time
July.
the
Yeah,
Denver
hopefully
thing.
by July. Fingers crossed.
Knowing my sarcastic remark, somebody will say something to me and I'll be thrown off the plane. Probably
Chris, maybe you just need to drive out there. That might be the way to go.
Might be a good idea.
Or maybe have your wife fly with and she can just tape your mouth shut. It's just a few hours.
Absolutely not. That's my safe haven. Where are you going with that? I hope she's not listening to that, because then she'll say, I've never been to Denver.
I think it's going to be really, really cool. It's always a good hang at the MUFON Symposium. All those symposiums, all the conferences. Just get out there, people. Meet your fellow ufologists and exchange ideas. I think it's a really healthy thing to do for sure.
Yep,
and you learn so much from them. Every time I go to one of these symposiums, not only do you meet the people, but the interaction that you get. Somebody will say, hey, Chris, I've been studying this. Did you ever? And I go, I never even heard of that before. And then you start getting that idea, and, you exchange so much information that you walk out of there with your mind just blown.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Absolutely.
Do we have time for a book recommendation this week?
Yeah, I think we do. We've got a few minutes till break here. I want to recommend this week Cheryl Costa's book. She wrote this with her wife, Linda Miller Costa. It's UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2020. This is a great book for those who really love stats. Obviously, MUFON's got the CMS system, which is a huge bonus, of course, to becoming a field investigator, is having access to that. But this book is also a really great one just to have on the shelf for reference. Cheryl's also one of my favorite interviews that I have ever done. And I wanted to show you a short clip from a couple of years ago when we were talking about her finishing this book. Amanda, can you roll that? Cheryl's an author, researcher, lecturer, podcaster, journalist extraordinaire, and she has a real passion for data. She really loves the numbers behind UFO sightings. She's a native New Yorker. She had her first UFO sighting with her family at the tender age of 12. She's a military veteran, a retired information security professional from the aerospace industry, and she went on to write the wildly popular UFO column New York Skies for the SyracuseNewTimes.com site. And if you look her up on Amazon, you'll find all kinds of things that she's written.
2012, I retired from Lockheed Martin after 32 years, and I was working for a newspaper. I looked on the web, and I looked at CNN, see if anything was going on, and there was this little sidebar article said, UFOs have been declining since the 1980s. Maybe they were always just an urban legend. I said, that doesn't feel right. So for the first time in my life, I Googled UFO Reporting Center. So I went to 1980 and just added them all up and started throwing them into a spreadsheet. And I did this little bar chart, and it went up like a rocket. What memo didn't the UFOs get? And the more and more of these things I read, the more I saw people just trying to get it off their chest. So I downloaded some stuff, and I did New York State. We didn't know what we were doing. Linda and I did not know. And we started adding county data to it. And suddenly we're sharing some of our charts with New York State investigators. And they're saying, we didn't know there was a cluster there because the county gave you another resolution. Rural area, it was like onesie-twosies. When you put the county information to it, suddenly those places started to these places that had a handful of sightings that were not much more than cattle crossings with a general store that sold Haagen-Dazs and a volunteer fire department and maybe a trailer park. These sightings were starting to show patterns in rural areas. Okay. Wow, we didn't know about that, So Linda and I, at the end of 2015, we said, wow, look at all the cool stuff we found. What if we did this for the whole country, she says. I said, it could take a year. It took 18 months. Linda, my spouse, who's the brains behind the book to begin with, okay, she's got the science degrees, not me. And she defined how we were going to do the book. She said, not going to be any cute aliens on the cover. We're going to do some science. We're going to do it like an epidemiology study and study clusters, distribution, frequency, shapes. And there's not going to be stories or anecdotals. Like everything else is always a story. We're going to publish data. In fact, I showed a couple sample pages to Stanton Friedman about 6 months before we published. I showed it, and he started flipping through the 6 or 7 pages I get. It was kind of laid out like a chapter, and he looked at it, and he stood up waving the papers in the air. Somebody's finally publishing some data! Who are they? Where they come from? We don't know that. We don't need to know that to study the phenomenon. That's what we've been doing here. Nobody's New York Times said nobody's ever published a book of statistics before. That's what impressed them. A New York Times reporter took this thing to his editor and dropped our 2.5-pound book on their table. And the book's got charts, graphs, and tables. It's got all the charm of a bank ledger. But he says, some old ladies in Syracuse did the science. So if people want to open it up like a phone book and find their town in there under their county, it will be possible.
I love her.
What a great interview.
She is so funny. Oh my God, that was just one of the most fun interviews in the world. But so much work went into this. And again, I just think it's a great resource to have, the idea that you could just open it up, like she said, like a phone book, and go, okay, well, I want to corroborate this and go right to that citing. I just think that's fantastic that they put that together. Yeah.
So much to be learned.
I will tell you, Cheryl Costas, I truly believe is a friend of mine, and she mentored me in a lot of stuff that, in my early times of doing ufology. And she is just an encyclopedia of knowledge. Not only does she put that statistics together, but the lectures she gives are unbelievable when it comes to ufology. I mean, she is just right there with info. You can ask her questions. She knows, yep, this, there. And the nice thing about Cheryl is when she turns around and says to you, I don't know, you'll get a call about a week later because she'll research, and then she'll come back and say, hey, I found out the answer to your question.
No,
great ufologist.
Yeah, she's pretty dogged, and she's super cool. So great book recommendation. All right, so we're just about ready for break. When we come back, we have our special guest coming in with us, David Toon. So stick around, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
All right, welcome back. I know that music always gets me going right after the break. I'm like, all right, refresh, ready for the second hour. Okay, Amanda, I think it is time. Our guest this week is David Toon. So I met David speaking at conferences and meeting people. I met David years ago at a symposium, and then we had him out for Colorado MUFON. So I consider David Toon a friend. David Toon works as a project manager conducting research for the Federal Aviation Administration at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. As a next-gen staff member at the Florida Test Bed Facility, David manages FAA projects aimed to improve data flow and communications within the national airspace systems for his day job. At night, he moonlights with MUFON as Florida Chief Investigator, assisting and training other field investigators in the art of UFO investigations. David was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona in 1961 and left there in 1984 to join the Army as an Electronic Warfare Intercept Systems Tactical Repairer, 33S. Within the military intelligence branch. After spending a little more than 5 years in the Army and as a new staff sergeant, David applied for the Officer Candidate School and the Aviation course and was accepted into both schools. The next 17 years were dedicated to flying UH-1 Hueys, OH-58 Kiowa, and the AH-64 Apache helicopters. I hope I got that right. And that included commanding an attack helicopter company command and conducting staff work up to brigade level. After a single combat tour in Iraq from 2004 to 2005, David retired in 2006 as an aviation major, but went immediately into overseas contracting in Iraq and Afghanistan for another 7 years. Thank you, David, for your service. David earned a bachelor degree in liberal studies while in the service, but in 2013 decided to acquire a second bachelor degree in unmanned aerial systems, drones, at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in 2015. By 2019, David had earned 2 Masters of Science degrees, one in human factors and the other in aeronautics with space studies. It was during his time at Embry-Riddle in 2015 that David joined MUFON, turning his childhood UFO curiosity into a pragmatic approach to the subject. Using statistical analysis in his university studies, David was able to show the UFO appearances near the Stereo A satellite were measurable and displayed in intelligent timing. His thesis paper was accepted by the university and returned with an A for his master's graduate capstone project for aeronautics. David's favorite hobby and passion is UFO hunting in the NASA Solar Satellite Archives online, and to date, he has collected more than 60,000 unidentified objects found within those images. His goal is to disclose the intense amount of astrobiological evidence, technosignatures, found in solar satellite archives that answers the question if other intelligent life exists beyond our planet with an undisputable yes. He's working on a website called solarsuspicions.com. It's in its beta stage right now and is anticipated to be available for all of us sometime in March of this year, 2022. Welcome to the show, David.
How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you great.
Perfect.
Can hear you great. I would just like to kick off, you're chief investigator there in Florida. Tell us about, MUFON, Florida MUFON. What's going on there in Florida?
We're busy. I don't know if you had a chance to see the monthly stats, but we pull through an awful lot of cases. It keeps us either number 1, 2, or 3 every month. So being surrounded by water, I think we pick up a lot of USO action as well. So we're super busy over here, and I enjoy it. And it really it started in 2015, as you were saying, Katie. It culminated when I came across something in some satellite imagery, and I couldn't answer the question. And it was about the same time I joined MUFON in hopes to expand my exposure to the field, because I was pretty sure what I saw wasn't an asteroid or a comet, and needed to get near some folks who had experience with it. And so that drew me into MUFON as a member back then. And a couple of years later, under the tutelage of John Gagnon, who unfortunately passed away last year, he set me up to be the replacement investigator, chief investigator for Florida, because he was just a wealth of knowledge, and he'll be missed sorely. But it just compounded my interest, even more so, seeing all the cases come in and working with all the field investigators. And we have a great bunch of field investigators in Florida. I'm sure every state does. I just know this family down here is tight, and we work together. If I can't figure out something, I'm giving somebody a call, and likewise, it's kind of nice. So we stay busy, and we have a few cases each year that just make your head swim a little bit. Of course, there's a lot of unknown cases that come through, but when it comes to statistically doing the analysis, those are hard only because there's not a whole lot of data that the witnesses bring to us. Sometimes it's a fuzzy picture. Sometimes it's a out of focus video. And it could be something, major. It's just hard to really make those conclusions that it's other world. But every now and then we'll do the analysis part of it on cases that have enough evidence to put together. And I did 2 of them just last year that were exceptional when it came to the craft itself and speed. I was fortunate enough to draw one of the cases where a family was out back and the dad looked up and was videotaping with his kids in the back. You could hear the kids playing around. He said, "What is that in that cloud?" And he held his camera, the phone camera up there, and he captured a little white dot that was going kind of behind the cloud and back out, and wasn't moving too fast, but it was unusual because it wasn't moving with the cloud, like an errant balloon or something. And as he sent in a couple of the video clips, it turns out there were other white dots about that same size that you can't see normally through the video clip that he sent in. But when I put it on Adobe Premiere Pro and slowed it down and enhanced the background, we were catching movement of other dots associated with that one, and came up with, I believe, a speed of about 3,200 miles an hour, given the distance and the how many frames it went through. It was incredible. I hadn't had anything since that time last year that dealt with speed like that. Wow. And then we had a second one where we had 4 or 5 objects right over the Gulf of Mexico, right off of Tampa. And we had 3 different witnesses send in the same pictures and videos of these look like orbs in the skyline, about 20 degrees elevation due west, and doing some triangulation of each one of the locations of the cameras onto that particular sighting. We had calculated the objects were actually not anywhere close to Tampa, but more like 20,000 feet in the air and about 150 miles away. It was incredible. And I had that verified with one of the state directors. I don't know if it was Kentucky. I forget who I was working with at the time. Her husband is a physicist, and he went through my numbers, and I was close. I had to adjust a few miles here and there based off of his calculations, which I passed math. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not a math genius. I just know when to start asking for help. That's how good I am. So he verified the same thing, and it was very interesting, and it's on YouTube as well. So we've had a couple of fun ones that I personally got to work on in Florida this last year. So we're busy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a good lesson for field investigators out there, just real quick. Hang in there. I know we get a lot of lights in the sky and satellites and Venus and whatever, but every now and again, those good ones come across. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're there. You just have to do the math, so to speak. If you're good with diving into the evidence and extracting it, that's the kind of fun evidence I like to play with. It's something we can calculate.
Oh, yeah. Well, it sounds like you're pretty good at math. I wouldn't knock your skills there. Didn't you get a degree in unmanned aircraft systems?
Yes.
Okay. So when you talk about an object that's going at just that insane speed, the first thing we think is that, how could anything flesh and blood, even live through that? And, it does, you have to wonder if it's not some just sort of artificial intelligence, whether or not there's anything even really in the craft, who knows?
Right.
Do you have thoughts on that with what you've seen, especially with what you've seen? And we're going to get into all of that, these objects near the sun, just the heat alone, really makes you wonder if anything could actually be inside piloting these crafts.
That's a really good question. My first inclination is I'm looking at their drones. An orb, really, there's some of them are small, some are large, but I don't see them as having occupants, just because of the nature of maneuvers that are happening. But because I'm a biological person, I think in biological terms in the physics that we deal with here. So I may be way off. I've never been abducted. I don't know what the inside of a craft looks like. I don't know how they maneuver with bodies inside. All that said, my first thought is it's a drone. So you're right in that sense. And speed is just speed. Humans can handle any amounts of speed. You just can't handle the turns that these guys do. So
right.
That's where it gets interesting and physically challenging. That if there's literally a cocoon of gravity of composition where everything's stabilized within the environment of these craft, then it's above me. I don't know, but I first think it's probably a drone just collecting data.
Sure.
If it's small and doing some high-speed maneuvers. Just a thought.
I would imagine if you took a sharp turn like this and you were inside, you'd be grape juice.
Yeah. I got to fly some fun aircraft, and I got to fly with the Air Force guys. We sometimes do joint operations, and it was fun watching them come in and play because they would play pretty hard. I'm in a helicopter. The best I can do is maybe 150 knots, 160 knots going downhill.
What do they call those ninja food processors? That's what you'd be. There'd be a pool of blood over there and mangled pie. Anyways, hey, listen, I want to piggyback what Cookie said about some stuff, because I think it's important before we get into the pictures and all these crafts by the sun, why they're actually going toward the sun. And, you and I have talked about that, and I think it's really interesting because, it's not really good. I mean, if you think about it, first of all, to show you a comparison how big the sun is, you could put 1.3 million Earths in the sun. That's how huge the sun is. And the suns usually are, called stars. They usually hang around for about 10 billion years. And we've been using this one for 4.5. So we only got about 5 billion years left on this one here. But you and I talked that the sun produces hydrogen to helium-4 to plasma energy, fusion, right? Not fission, but fusion, correct?
Right.
Okay. So they're going through these things like a gas station. They're kind of siphoning off this plasma because we know plasma energy can fuel incredible energy. Am I correct on that?
Well, sure. It's the fourth element. It is a gaseous type of charge, if you want to put it in layman's terms. And the fact that these things can get near the sun and not burn is not really beyond our intelligence and our capability. You may be familiar with the Parker probe that was launched, I guess, 1.5 years now. And it's designed to get within 4 million miles of the surface of the sun. And that's ours. And it's studying all the plasma, all the different physics that the sun gives us at a real close range. It's up front and it's hot, but we have materials that we've produced that can get us within almost the chromosphere, photosphere of the sun itself. And it's filming the plasma streams going by it. Just imagine what's going to happen 100 years from now with that type of technology we have. We'll go right through the sun and do what we need to do, maybe land something on it.
But wouldn't you agree that possibly one theory that they're going to the sun is that it's a fuel source for them? And
there's two theories. You're absolutely right, Chris. There's two theories that work for me. As a pilot, just imagine yourself in a craft. You take off out of the solar system. What are you going to see?
Yeah.
Darkness.
Yeah.
What do you want to see? A way through the darkness.
Yeah, so, it's like a beacon.
Exactly. It's a navigation aid for those who are using such to traverse our galaxy or universe. So number one, it's a point to fly to. Number two, once you get there, you kind of know what you're going to gas up with. It's a plasma. And there's plenty of pictures in my archives of objects that have been there a day or two on near the sun surface, not on the sun surface, but near it. And you can see the streams of plasma between it, the object itself, and the sun. And if you're an astrophysicist, you call that a filament. And that's true. There's filaments that don't have something on the end of it that are probably magnetically generated, and the plasma goes up into a nice tight corkscrew and gives you this spike look off the sun. And it sits there for a while. But there's other objects at the end of those particular spikes. It looks like it's drawing the plasma towards the object itself, and then the object leaves. So what astrophysicists don't talk about is what those off-sun objects are, and that's where astrobiologists come in and say, well, that filament may have been created by an intelligent craft or, some type of probe, so to speak. We don't know what it is exactly. So when I started coming across objects in the NASA satellite imagery archives, that was one of the things that struck me first. You're right, Chris. What are they doing here?
It's like a quickie mark. You stop, you get some gas, you grab a couple of cows to snack on, and away you go.
Yeah.
We're a quickie mark to them.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah, and it seems pretty hostile. I mean, prominences and like, whoa, like, okay. So let's back up a little bit here. I kind of want to, before we get into like sensors, and I know they have sensors out there, right? So what was your first, what did you see that kind of made you go like, wait a minute, what am I looking at here? Can you walk us through that a little bit? Because
I was going to class. It was January 2015. I was going to class, and our class was about to start up, and I was looking at the little weather loops you see on the weather radar charts where you get this 4 hours of clouds movement. And I opened up the Florida section for the weather I wanted to see because I didn't know if I needed an umbrella that day or not. Because Florida, you never know when a storm comes up, and sometimes you can see them coming up. So this little weather loop showed Florida completely clear as a state. And I'm like, wow, I don't need an umbrella. And as I watched the 4 hour loop go through, I saw 5 macro bursts just appear, round circular clouds just appear and then disappear within the 4 hour loop. Now, as a pilot, I know what a microburst is. That's anytime you've got a downdraft of air suddenly, and usually it's in a column, and it can do some damage, especially if you got weather events associated with it. They'll knock a lot of stuff around. And they're normally a couple miles wide, maybe. These were 50 to 100 miles in diameter when they started and then ended. And it was 5 all along Florida. It almost looked like random places. And it caught my attention because there's no way you can synchronize 5 macro bursts, if you want to call them that. So I figured maybe I should go to spaceweather.com and start looking around. So I opened up this website and started looking at the daily CMEs and, all the sun weather that was happening, see if we got hit with something where it could have put pressure in the atmosphere at 5 different places. And I didn't see anything prominent like, coronal mass ejection coming off the sun and causing all this disturbance. But I did see a couple of strange shapes within the 96 images for that day. You hit the little movie and see it move across. So I slowed down the movies and grabbed those images. And even though I was in human factors at the time, I ran upstairs to the astrophysics guys and walked in with my 10 pictures. And I said, is there a professor up here who can help me with answering some questions? I got some stuff off a SOHO satellite. And some guy wheels his chair out into the hallway and he goes, I do SOHO. I'm like, I'm in the right place. So I walked in, we had a little talk, and he was able to explain 8 of the 10 pictures I showed him. There's some type of cosmic ray hit the CCD sensor off the satellite, or, some type of hyper crazy particle, or some type of maybe program compression problems with handling the data. But the 2 we got down to that were really strange, he looked at it and says, I'm not really sure about those 2. Shocked me. I mean, this is what this guy does. He looks through scopes all the time, and he was a SOHO expert for that particular satellite. And I said, that's all I needed to know. So I went back home, and that was just all I needed for motivation. So I started digging through the NASA archives deeper for the SOHO satellite. And sure enough, it took months of searching around and digging. But I finally came across one. And for those who are not familiar with satellites and where they are, I don't know if we can put up the first image of the satellite placement. But I chose looking at SOHO, stereo A and B, and SDO. All 3, actually there's 4 satellites there. I just used stereo A only. But they're placed in orbits with the Earth, except for the stereo A and B. They go opposite of the Earth to do a full circle in different directions. And they've been out there. Well, I guess SOHO went out there in 1996, and then stereos went out there in 2003 or 4, and SDO, I think it was 2010. So they sequence them, they update them. There's better optics, of course, as you go through it. But when I was working with the SOHO satellite, about 6 months, 7 months into searching that archive, which is massive, by the way, I came across my first image, which is off the C2 sensor, the SOHO satellite. And it was listed as 1997. And there's this little thing sitting off to the side. I put an arrow on this particular picture, but when you zoom into it for the next picture, you can see that that's not an asteroid and that's not a comet. That's not what they look like. They're normally a single ball of light, both asteroids and comets, and they have a really nice little trail behind them. This doesn't have that. This was way too organized. And to be honest with you, as soon as I came across that, I didn't know what to do next. I found what I was looking for. Now who do I talk to? Do I divulge? Do I go back to the professor and say, what about this one where he calls, the men in black? And I don't know what I was going up against, but it was so emotionally significant for me that I didn't really say anything to anybody for about 2 days. I mean, literally didn't say anything to anybody, and kind of had to process it a lot because I come from a very deep Christian background. And now I found something I didn't know was not in the Bible. Since then, I see some scriptures that allude to it, but it now challenged my faith. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting because I've got evidence of something off-world. And oh, by the way, that SOHO satellite's 1 million miles away from the Earth. It's 3 times the distance past the moon. There's no debris. There's nothing out there for this thing to run into. It's just it in the sun. And so when I found it, it was an emotional, significant event for me. But once
Sorry, I was going to say, I'd love to follow up on this. If you can expand upon this, because I think this happens to a lot of people, whatever their experience or research leads them to, it can just blow their mind and they have to view the world completely differently. So yeah, if you don't mind just continuing on this thought for a minute.
Well, what it did is it crashed my spiritual side for a while. That's why I probably went quiet for a couple of days, is I had to sit and think about how's this dovetail into what I've been taught all my life. And in fact, what I taught, I was a Southern Baptist deacon for years before I went non-denominational. Still believe there's a God, still believe there's a Savior, but I now had to look at what Scripture was saying and say, is there any evidence now within Scripture? I searched Scripture now like I did the archives, and had to put the two together to see if they fit. That's the tough part. And I'll be honest with you, it took a lot of time and a lot of study. And I finally came across friends of mine who are really adept at going through scriptures and understanding the intent, and also who are believers of extraterrestrial life. And we did find some scriptures in there where God does talk about those who tabernacle in the heavens, like in Revelations, I think it's 20:12, where there's other places where he talks about off life or off planet life, but you don't know that when you read it the first time. Now that I have to combine the two paradigms, now I can start seeing where some of these scriptures may be alluding to other life. So yeah, that took a little bit of work, and that's probably why NASA spent a couple $1 million on a study about 10 years ago with that very same question: is how is the religious community going to handle a disclosure that we're not alone?
Yep.
What's that look like?
Yeah. Yep.
So they've already done one study. I think there's a second one they've done recently, which may, I guess, be the prelude to a possible disclosure at a different level. But NASA keeps asking that same question. So that's a good question. But once I got done with that and started pulling in these pictures, I found that I've probably seen about 7 million images in the last 6 years. But I started seeing patterns. And that's where you get into the science side of this study. And if you can take qualitative analysis and you start finding things that look alike, and you can start categorizing them, then you can start counting them, and it turns it into a quantitative analysis. So luckily, and Embry Riddle did a really good job. They made me take 4 semesters of statistics, which was really painful, by the way. But I learned a little bit, enough to be dangerous. So I started using my statistical analysis prowess, which is really low level, real amateur. But it was enough to start doing the science behind the discovery itself. That's the hard part. Everybody can look at a picture and give a story. But when you start tearing things apart, doing the analysis side of it, that's when it gets real for scientists and folks that have not been abducted like I haven't, or seen a UFO like I haven't. So I kind of need proof. I need data. And so I created my own. And when I started putting those together, if you go to the next slide, you'll see a 02. Let's go to slide 02. You'll see patterns that start to develop no matter what sensor you're looking at. Now, this is an HMI sensor. This is gravitational and more magnetic. So all the gray bumps you see on the sun here are the magnetic north and south, or the polarity of the surface of the sun. And here's this thing screaming across. It's a triangle, and it's got a trail to it. It's a little bit of a curve, but it's highly magnetic, because the surfaces on it are either black or white, which is the extremes for those pixels picking up either north or south poles. So whatever flew into this image is definitely magnetic in nature, and it's very triangular in nature. And unfortunately, the next image, it wasn't there. It crossed immediately. But the satellite, just like you were showing on that other picture, the next picture down, you see another triangle. And I'm zoomed in. The sun is in this image, but I zoomed in because you could see 3 little specks off to the side. And you don't notice it when you're just going through the archives. You really have to pay attention to what is sitting by the sun and then start zooming in to say, what on earth would be sitting by the sun at the 171 angstrom spectrum, which this one is, and how come it's only in one image? And how did it get there? And how did it get past the camera so fast? And so I started putting things together in categories. If you go to the next photo, you'll see that the 284 angstrom sensor off of, I believe this is the stereo A, it also picked up a triangular shaped something. And again, the surface of this something may not be producing any visible response to the sensor. That's probably why it's black. My theory is what you see as a triangle there are the surface areas that do have some type of propulsion going on because it pretty much maxes out that frequency as a white. The sun is the target for this particular frequency, but the object next to it actually has more of that frequency and is no longer yellow, but off showing up as a white pixel, which indicates to me is a propulsion point, more likely. So this craft, which is about the size of the Earth, maybe Earth and a half, if this was sitting next to the sun, is got several points of propulsion on the surface of the craft itself. We just can't see the craft. And if you go to the next image, you'll see one in a different frequency. This is a 195 angstrom. And when I say angstrom, I'm talking frequency for the particular sensor to look at this, look at the sun. So I'm showing you different sensors are picking up similar shapes that are by the sun that you can start to put into a file called triangles. Now, did I identify the object itself? No, I did not. But in qualitative analysis, it just has to be similar in nature enough to the next piece of data that you could say these have characteristics of 3 sides. And then you put it together. As you go through the slide set here, the next picture will show you something that is not even close to the surface of the sun. Because sometimes I get people say, well, that's just a CME. It just came off the sun. No, there is no connectivity whatsoever of this triangle to that surface of the sun because there's no plasma trail. There was not a filament. There's nothing that led up to it in the previous images, nor is there any evidence of it in the images to follow. All I can see and all I can say is I see something triangular that's nowhere near the sun, that wasn't from the sun, and is similar to the other sensors that are picking up similar objects. Does that help?
Wow.
Yeah. It kind of lost me at the sun, but here we go. You know, geez, I thought I was back in college going through an astronomy class or something.
Sorry, I do that.
No, that's fine. You were great. You're awesome. As a matter of fact, the last time we talked, Dave, you made me start researching the sun because I go, this guy's so much advanced. He's got so much research done. I got to start boning up on this stuff. So I actually, one of the things that amazes me with the stuff you saw, because people will say, well, that's just space debris. And that's nonsense because, as you know, as I learned, the sun has tremendous amount of gravity. And if it was space debris that just kind of, it would be sucked right into the sun and burn up like that. But
Sure.
This stuff is very close to the sun. It's defying its gravitational pull. Dave, tell me about that. And while we're talking about that, explain Oumuamua, why that's a craft. And, people think it's a craft as opposed to a space rock.
All good questions, and it's all simple physics. If it's the stuff we learned in high school, so don't panic. Newton's laws: if you push something in space, it should go in a straight line until another force acts on it, right? That's just Newton's law, unless there's another body of gravitational pull. So the things we see in space that are natural are asteroids and comets and particles. And as they get near the sun, you'll see them curve. Sometimes they run into the sun, like Comet Ison ran into the sun, and we'll never see it again. But other comets and asteroids that get near the sun, you can see the effect of the gravitational pull because of the arc of the trajectory, and as it changes and goes back out in space. So we know that the gravitational pull's there. That's again basic physics. What Avi Loeb saw in Umu is it came into our solar system and it slowed down rather than sped up. And then as it got past the sun, it did a different trajectory than would have been as a normal satellite path. So when they try to model where the thing's going to go, and all of a sudden it doesn't fit the model and it does its own thing, and it has both trajectory change and speed change, it has more intelligent characteristics than natural characteristics. And that's why Avi Loeb made his statement, said, this is more like an alien spaceship because it's doing things that are not natural for an object in space. So my pictures that I'm finding, I can track comets. I can track asteroids too. I have those images. As part of my presentation, when I do conferences, I show that. So there's a comparison. So people go, oh, that has a little bright dot and a nice tail. Yeah, that's what a comet looks like. It's what an asteroid looks like. But my 90%, maybe 95% of my images, there's just one image. And it's not a series of images as you watch the comet or asteroid interact with the sun's gravitational pull. It's just there and it's gone. Some of the pictures I have are interesting. We'll get into that here in a little bit because they stay at a certain distance away from the sun in one spot and then leave. Not natural, because it should be sucked into the sun. Even if it found an equilibrium, how did it get away from that? How did its space shoot itself back out? What was the component that made that propelling away from the surface? So good question. Basic physics that we have a handle on today helps us to determine, is this a natural object or is this something that's being driven intelligently? And I did have to do a paper. One of my good professors who was mentoring me in this said, now you have to write me a paper, and it's for credit for class, on all the artifacts that you have to deal with solar satellite imagery. So I had to go in, and luckily I had an electronics background in the military, and discern what cosmic rays look like, striking a CCD image or a CMOS image, how the system's built. Most satellite lenses have 4 quadrants to them. There's actually 4 cameras in one lens, so you can see each one of the quadrants, and they fire off at just milliseconds between each other. But I had to learn all the things that goober up an image, like a cosmic ray, like program compression, data drops, from deep space networks that don't just get the data there. You get a big square in the middle of it. Beautiful picture, this big dark square. Well, it's not a UFO. That's just data that's missing. So I found that all the UFOs I thought I was seeing shrank really quick as I learned all the artifacts that these sensors deal with, on a routine basis.
That was actually going to be my next question to you, is what do you say to people that say maybe they're just saturated sensors or, plasma blooming or natural things like that? And it sounds to me like you've really done your work there. So you kind of...
It's exposure to all of it. And that's the key. Mm-hmm. If I were to turn you guys on to the data set that I look at, let's say the SDO NASA website, and I put you in there and let you start looking at stuff, you would see a bunch of UFOs. That would be your conclusion. Once you start looking at the literature, even NASA puts out on each of their solar satellite systems, they'll put out literature on what to look for that goobers up the picture. Mm-hmm. And so they give you a artifact list, and they show you the artifacts as it comes in. You go, this is dust on the lens, and there's one of the sensors actually has a little piece of filament on it. You go, oh, it's a UFO. No, it stays there for every picture every day of the last 10 years. Not a UFO. But if you look at one picture, you go, "Oh, that little triangle is a picture, or is a UFO?" No, you got to look at about 1 million of them and realize it's not.
Yeah.
Certain camera artifacts happen. Excuse me for the sun. It's perfect on the side of my face right now. I don't have my curtains up, but certain artifacts have to be studied. Otherwise, everything's a UFO, and you'll just drive yourself crazy.
Well, David, there's also something, I may not be saying it right, but something called the Gestalt principle. Am I saying that correct?
Yes,
and that's something that you do factor in when you're looking at all of these images. Can you do like a very fast explanation and how, for the critics, that you are factoring that in?
Yeah, exactly. Well, how do I know it's a UFO, right? I'm using my cognition, but how do we know? That's interesting because way back in the early 1920s and 30s, there was a group of psychologists that asked the question, how do we know anything? How are we picking up this environment that we live in? And it was a Gestalt group. I don't know what that word means. I wish I'd done more research on it. But they produced an enormous amount of data on how we process as humans shapes and sounds and all the senses that we use to traverse and get around in our world. They produced a step-by-step, this is how your mind works, and it applies to everybody. So they gave general principles like proximity. When you see two objects that look similar and they're next to each other, you say, well, they're probably similar because they're next to each other. Or if you see a picture, some of the illusions where you see a panda bear, but you only see parts of the panda bear. It's not the full thing. The back isn't completely drawn in or whatever, but it's a panda bear because you recognize the ears and the coloring, but it's not a full. Your mind says, oh, that's a panda bear because it can take the concept that you're recognizing from previous data, Bayesian data, in your own mind or your own experiences, and says, this is what this is from what you've seen before. That's not what I'm doing because the stuff I'm seeing is not anything I've seen before. So it's just the opposite. But I have to know everything that is common. So when you learn about the artifacts, all you're left with is, if this is not an artifact within the image, then what is it? And if it has a basic shape to it, like a triangle, then it's probably not man-made. And or it could be, but it's probably not nature-made, I should say.
Yeah.
But it's either, and when I have a theory about that. All the triangles I just showed you, I think it's an inferior race. Most of the stuff that's really incredible, doesn't have a straight side to it. So let me put that on the record for those who have these rounded, weird craft.
You got to really piss off the people flying the triangles.
I know. I shouldn't even worry about Men in Black now. But if you go to the next image, I think I had down there, it goes into different. Yeah, there's one. It goes into different shapes that are like crosses that shouldn't be near the sun. If you go to the next image, you'll see they're just not normal. That is not an asteroid, and that was only in one image. So it's not an artifact of data. If you go to the next one, you'll see there's another cross. If you go to the next one, you'll see that I can start categorizing things like this one's coming out of the sun and it goes straight out. Now I know what CMEs are and how they develop and how they release energy, but there's these objects that from time to time, if you go to the next one, actually come out of the sun and create trails behind them. They're not CMEs. There's something that is projected away from the sun that leaves a trail. That's a different category. So at this point, you start putting these together in a single file, as I have, and call them departures. I don't know what is departing, but I know something's departing because it's only in one frame. The next frame, it's gone. CMEs will develop and go. And this is a massive one. This one's interesting because it stayed around for a couple of hours, if not a couple of days. And it was so massive. A CME, it looks just like a CME coming off the surface, but it stayed. CMEs ebb and flow. They don't hold a spot like this for more than a few minutes, and you can see the progression between images. And this one looks the same for the 10 images I have. If you go to the next image past this, you'll see 2 of them. Now you can't tell on that second one to the right how it left the sun if it was a CME, but I know it's not a CME because it lasted a day or 2. Those lights just hung there. Oh, here's another sensor that picked up the same thing. So there's no plasma connection to whatever these things are hanging out by the sun, but they're massive. They're easily 5-10 times bigger than the Earth, and they're not moving across anywhere. That's the funky part of understanding what artifacts are and then comparing them to something I'm looking at saying, I still don't know what that is, but that's not an artifact. That's where the categories come in, and that's when you start doing the specific type of analysis, which is called quantitative analysis, and start looking at the numbers.
Well, Dave, after you insulted the people that are flying the triangles, if you get abducted, you'll know the reason why.
I'm so toast.
You are toast. And I just want to tell folks, I like you triangle people. So, so let me just ask you this, Dave. Because now I'm fascinated. What is the most common thing that you see out there? I mean, obviously, we talked about triangles and crosses and things, but you've done such tremendous amount of research. What object do you see the most?
That's a good one. The next image, if you'll bring it up, is a series of sensors that caught something that's so similar that I currently have 13,000 images of this. This is 16 of them. I just put it in a collage because I found it fascinating enough to say this is awesome. This is how science is done. If you can repeat it and you can get different sensors, which I call my witnesses, by the way. Each one of the different sensors on the satellites is a storyteller. They pick something up and they report it. But if I get enough witnesses or these sensors together showing that they're all seeing these same similar type craft, that is how categories are put together and then eventually someday identified. I don't know how long it's going to take for somebody to go, I know what that is, but I'm putting it out there. And so, yeah, there's stuff like this particular picture that shows just a plethora of this type of object that's only seen in one frame and it's gone next.
Wow. I don't know where the heck the time is going. We only have like 7 minutes left.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm finding this so fascinating. Tell us a little bit about this website you're building.
Solar Suspicions is based off of my data that I have in my files because I have so much of it that I got with my 4th webmaster. And don't ask me what the story is behind 3 other webmasters, but they get excited about it and then I don't get the phone calls. I don't know if I scare them or what. But I've got a gentleman now, A7 Web Design, that is putting together a website for me to dump all this data. And I do categorize it. If you go to solarsuspicions.com, you go to the database, you'll see it pull down and you can maneuver through the pictures, but there's a filter button at the top left that will give you all the categories that these things are listed by. And I've got swarm, flying formation, massive, triangles, solar centric. That whole collage you saw earlier, I call solar centric. I don't know what they are, but they're associated with the sun, at least for my research. So you can look through my website, and it's not 100% done. It's got some back end issues that need to be tightened up. But as far as the general public, if you want to go and take a look at it now and go through some of the images for yourself, absolutely. I have 1,200 and I think 36 images currently on there. And the intent, once I'm up and running, is to rotate the images in and out, mostly in, of significant finds so people can take a look at it and do their own research. And come back and tell me I'm wrong.
Well, that makes me want to ask you, you say people can do their own research. I understand that NASA has not shut you down on any of this. And like Katie said, we've only got a few minutes left, but there might be people watching. They're like, how do I do this too? How do I access some of the things that you've been able to see? Can you walk us through those steps a little bit?
Kind of. If you go to the very first picture on 000, first image that I put up there, NASA has the 3 websites, SOHO, Stereo, and SDO. If you just Google, let's say SDO, which is the latest and greatest, it's got the best pictures, even though Stereo has some really funky ones. Go SDO and Google SDO space NASA. It'll take you right to the website. In there are archived movies and archive images from those movies. And how I do it is specifically as I open up the day's worth of movies, and I take a look, maybe a couple of days worth of movies, and I just watch the movie. And so if it gets me through a 24 or 48 hours worth of images, and I don't see anything, I go on to the next sensor. There's plenty of sensors to choose from. And once I find something within that movie that flashes, while I'm watching it, you'll see a spark. It looks like just a little light somewhere. It's not a part of the sun, but it's just a quick snap. I'll stop the movie, go back to that image, and then dive into the separate images associated with that date time group, pull it out, zoom in on it, and see what fish I bring up.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Are you still working with any of your initial professors that you showed some of this work to, or are you kind of rogue on this, or
No, I had plenty of support at Embry-Riddle. I actually did a presentation in our new conference room on this subject. They didn't shirk at it at all. And even my professor, when I did my master's thesis on it, when I proved, sorry, you can't use the word proved in statistical analysis. When I showed there was a significant event happening within my data, it wasn't, 5.0 times 10 to the negative 2. It was like 7.7 times 10 to the negative 29. Almost went off the scales for the timing I was looking for, running some Fourier transforms and blah, blah, blah. It gets gross. But my paper ended up showing that I could pull a timing out of a specific UFO that was going by a specific sensor on the stereo, which is 64 million miles away at the time of when I was grabbing my data set. It wasn't anywhere near the Earth. And he sat down and said, yeah, that's unusual. And that was it. And the 8 other guys in the room just got quiet.
Yeah.
So data speaks a lot. And I got a paper. As soon as I get my paper up on the website, you'll be able to read through it. So any other questions on that? Did I answer the question?
I bet those guys have grants they have to hold on to, so they can't say very much.
Yeah. They do pat me on the head and say, keep going. And then they're like, shh. All right. So, yeah.
Dave, in 1 minute, what do you think of disclosure?
For me, it's already happened. Politically, it hasn't happened at the right level. And I think you and I had talked about this once before. The day that one of the presidents of one of the countries introduces an alien and they give a joint conference, that'll be a good day.
Yep.
Until then, it seems like everybody in the government, outside of government, saying, hey, we see it. It's right here. Why don't you guys say something? There is such a dark side to this government. Trust me. I've had a clearance.
Oh no, that's show number 2 there.
Yeah,
the
I was
dark
gonna
side.
say,
The dark side.
Just know everything that's out there, it's government related, even NASA. And NASA has a dark side to it. They have a light side, but they have a dark side. Same thing with the military, same thing with our government. It's yin and yang all the way through.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, nothing is going to surprise any of us at this point. Like, I think 2022 Alien coming out, we'll all be like, yeah, what next? I mean, we're all like there. David Toon, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for all your service and all our service members out there that serve. Thank you so much. It was really great having you on.
You guys are awesome.
Really interesting research, and I just love the way your mind works and the way you analyze data. So cool.
Keep Katie, up the faith.
Yeah, Katie Cook, thank you. Chris DiPerno, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evenings. And Chris, stay warm. I hope it warms up there in New York for you. Thank you to Bill Skywatcher, producer, and our co-producer, Amanda Curran. We couldn't do it without you. You're like awesome getting those pictures up there for us. My gosh. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week. I believe we have Dev next week, if I'm thinking correct. Dev Regine. So I know I say her name wrong and she's going to kill me for that. But everybody have a great weekend. Keep looking up. Report your sightings to MUFON. Become a field investigator. Get involved with MUFON. Like David said so eloquently at the beginning, we become family, like the MUFON family. So I hope you can join us. So everybody, take care. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.